If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
And the Commerce Committee. We have House Bill 242 relative to definition and regulation of e-cigarettes. This bill is sponsored by Representative McKee. 26 is the representative with us.
Yes, Macbeth.
Yes. Would you like to present the bill?
So did you ask, excuse me, Chairman, did you ask me if I'm ready to speak?
Yes. Would you like to introduce your bill to us, please?
Certainly, thank you. The Chairman is going to go first. So I have some material for you I'd like to pass out first. Don't be scared that there's so much. It's really for reference, for protection. Sorry. Thank you.
Senator, the floor is yours.
Hello from the Seacoast. So if you all have your packets, for the record, I'm Rebecca Macbeth. I represent Ward 2 in Portsmouth, which is Rockingham 3029, and I am on the Commerce and Consumer Affairs House Committee. I introduced the first draft of 242, and you can see that that's on page 1. And the bill before you is the 4-page bill that starts on page 2. And so I am before you today after much research, last-minute research. I did support the amendment that was given by Chairman Hunt that is on that's a bill before you to pages 2 through 6. But I'm here today to not support it, and I want to explain why. I'll try to just take 5 minutes.
Pardon me for cutting you in. You don't support this bill?
I do not, that language. So, and I want to explain why. Last session of the the Chief of New Hampshire Liquor Enforcement, Chief Wilson, came to us and said we had a problem, that he could no longer enforce the access to youth tobacco provisions because the technology of e-cigarettes had changed. And so the definition of e-cigarette no longer they could enforce. And if you look at that page 1, when you look at our definition of e-cigarette, it's about 3/4 down the way. It says that an e-cigarette means electronic smoking device composed of mouthpiece, heating element, battery, circuits, blah, blah, blah. And it says, and provides a vapor of pure nicotine. And that is the problem. The problem is the fact that our statute says that the electronic cigarette will provide a vapor of pure nicotine. So that's on page 7 that I was just mentioning. So what happened? Why did we go from 1 page to 4 pages? The initial bill, I submitted it on behalf of the Liquor Commission, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Division of Revenue. They had all gotten over this summer, and they had agreed to the legislation, to the wording that you see on my 1-page bill. However, when that came before the committee, we thought it was going to be easy to get through. It ended up that because my bill, the initial one, not only changed the definition of e-cigarettes to allow for e-cigarettes that had no nicotine or any percentage, it also went in to Title 13 and changed the alcohol statutes themselves. So that ended up getting everybody interested. Everybody. Before, our goal again was the youth access to tobacco. It's a completely different title. It's Title 10 and it's 126K is the statute. The majority, or all the rest that I know of, I don't know of any other alcohol statutes, the Liquor Commission statutes and tobacco that outside of taxes, which are separate, but the Liquor Commission, they're all either 187.8, 187.7, 187.9, and 175. Anyway, the bill before you now it goes in and it amends 4 different of those titles. It's not what we need. This is shooting a butterfly with an elephant gun. And it really began because we did not understand how to properly amend the statute. I want to just go back, if I can, and if you'll start on page 9, you'll see this is a Senate, this is the notes, legislative history from your Senate Commerce, Labor, and Consumer Affairs hearing in April 15th, 2010. And if I could, I've taken out a few pages of that. And if you could go to page 13, you'll see that this problem of technology getting ahead of our language was brought up at that time by Senator Bragdon. And I believe you'll see that it's the 3rd paragraph down, and I have an arrow to it on page 13. Senator Bragdon asked, the person that was questioning, and I do have that on the page before, you can see, it's Assistant Attorney General Richard Head, who the Attorney General's office was very much behind this legislation. And New Hampshire had been on the forefront of adopting the Youth Access to Tobacco Act about 10 years earlier, but again now we needed to update it. So Senator Bragdon asked, and I don't have to read it to you, but he says, you know, the part that interests me is this part that in your definition of e-cigarette, it's a pure vapor mixed with propylene glycol. I guess that's the definition sufficient to keep people from changing what they have. I think that the thing that struck me was the pure nicotine. And then he goes on to say, Senator Bragdon says, so if I was a clever manufacturer trying to get around the law, can I get around the law by not having pure nicotine, but 98% nicotine? Is that broad enough and covered? And so Attorney Head says, responds, I believe that I'm comfortable with the language, and he talks about the FDA, but then he says, there are other constituents in the glycol gel he's talking about that involves inhaling of the pure nicotine, but he said to the extent that they do try to amend their product, we will be back, but I'm comfortable with the definition now. So then again, what he says is, if they try to change this recipe, I will be back to change the vocabulary, the wording. So that is what we need. That is all we need. We don't need to do anything else. I was under the impression, once we got into this, it was brought up that the Liquor Commission has no authority to implement 126K. I'm not going to go through all of it because I know you don't want to hear it, but I do have this for reference. But if you go to 15, page 15, that is the chapters, I mean the subsections of 126K that I pulled out that grant the Liquor Commission authority to implement, rule make, and enforce this statute. And in fact, they did enforce this statute on these cigarettes. I talked to the previous chief enforcement officer until about 2014 when jointly or together. So the next thing I want to just bring out, and I'm kind of taking you through history, and I'm not sure if you're that interested, so I'm just going to go quickly. But another item that came up this year that I thought was interesting is we had a bill, and it starts on page 16 in the House Committee, which we retained, and it was a bill that would have curtailed and limited the enforcement officer's ability to enforce laws, all laws, not on the grounds of a licensee. So if they saw a traffic violation, which this was somebody carrying alcohol that wasn't old enough, that was the example that the legislator used. Anyway, they wanted to curtail liquor enforcement officers to only have their authority when they were on the grounds of a licensee. And we had police chiefs, we had sheriffs, we had so many people full of the committee room and say, no, you can't limit these enforcement officers. We need them. They're like our auxiliary police. You know, how crazy is it to have them who go through the police academy, the same training, how crazy is it for them to be in a place and they see a law violated and they can't act on it. So we retained the bill. You won't see it. The other thing I have, and I found this again, this is all stuff that I supported the bill that you see before you, but it just didn't seem right to me that we had to go through all that language change, 4 different titles to just do the vocabulary. Anyway, you'll see in 19, 20, and 21, actually there's a missing page, those are all regulations that the New Hampshire Liquor Commission has adopted, that enforce 126K. Now they're not all there. I've given you the first 2 pages and then the last 2 pages that show you, and you can see on the page that's not numbered, I mean, they're enforcing 126K. So there's this argument that they don't have the authority to, they do. They were. So some of the next page, on page 22, through 25, some of the statutes, some of the rules had expired. And this was just submitted by the New Hampshire Liquor Commission last week on April 20th. And it is their new rules for 126K and also their new regulations for everything. So the last thing I will say, one thing that kind of threw us a little bit was smokeless tobacco. I mean, not smokeless tobacco, the definition for smokeless cigarette. And a lot of us didn't know what that was. And when it was adopted in 1988, that's back when, you know, that's before the Hubble telescope was online. It's about the same year that Bush beat Dukakis. So it's a long time ago, and technology changes. If you remember, we were still using 8-track tapes at that time, and now we're using discs to, you know, exchange video. So what I have there is 26 to 27. It's a history. It starts in 1988. It goes back to, I think, something from last year. It shows that smokeless cigarettes, which is the definition of tobacco products within 126K, is an electric cigarette. So I do have the amendment. I mean, I don't think I can offer it, but I will give it to you. All we need to do is change the definition of e-cigarette. If what our goal is really is to enforce the youth's access to tobacco, all we need to do is change the definition of cigarette, e-cigarette. And I'll remind you, if you do adopt the bill 242 as it is now, which makes e-cigarettes not part of tobacco in the entire liquor title, we're going to have real problems spending federal money on youth tobacco enforcement because the federal government defines e-cigarettes as tobacco. And if as a state we make a stand that e-cigarettes aren't tobacco, which is what the bill before you, 242, will do, how are we going to use our sign-on money? How are we going to, it might affect the Indoor Clean Air Act. We don't know how to affect these things, plus the settlement money. So I would ask you to, you know, listen to the rest of the testimony. I don't know if some of the testimony would change based on the research that I've just pulled together. Again, I haven't shared this with anybody. I was finishing it this morning with the Administrative Rules Council. And again, you do have their opinion that the Liquor Commission can enforce without the language that's in the proposed bill now. So here's the amendment, and I really hope that, you know, there's no question that in argument, bipartisan or anything, that we wanted to support the Youth Tobacco Act. It's really how we do it. And if we want to go further, we give proper notice to all the people, all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for coming in and introducing your bill. As you know, the question about vaping and cigarettes and regulation has been in front of this body for some 8 to 10 years, and every year since I've been here, there's been, it seems like someday, every day, someone thinks that government should come in and find a new business to regulate and find a new product to regulate. And I keep thinking, unless I'm wrong, that we've been able to respect this industry and stop excessive regulation from coming down on their head like the hand of God. So globally, you kind of know where I stand on the issue. So I'm so far to the free market side. I'm wondering, why are you even trying to make a definition which will lead to regulation?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Actually, if you're not for regulation, you're on my side. Because the bill before you, 242 now, authorizes the Liquor Commission to license all e-cigarette shops. It does. So it's going to require more licensing. And the other question about that is, where's the financial footnote? If we're going to be doing that, if we now know, I mean, that's going to require new positions because there are lots of vaping stores and lots of stores, cigar stores sell, you know, vaping equipment now, convenience stores that don't have to buy a license or cigar store license. So the bill before you, as it is, I don't think it was our intent. I was part of the group that formulated that bill. We were trying to figure out in the dark how just to change 126K. And because of all, we didn't have the history. You know, again, I'll say, you know, when things called smokeless cigarettes came out, and they were, you know, just what we think, evolution. I mean, I had was a young mother with kids that weren't in school yet. I now have 4 kids that graduated from college, and one's balding. So I'm just saying, it's a long time. I mean, when we look at it, we didn't really know I didn't know what smokeless cigarettes, how's that different from smokeless tobacco? And we didn't know that the Liquor Commission had already promulgated rules on 126K and already settled the issue that they had authority. I mean, so we did our best. I did my best, and I think all the people, it was all in good spirit. And it's a little bit unfortunate that I'm coming here just throwing this out, but I didn't feel right about what we were doing. What we were doing has so many implications, like you said. It has implications about taxing those products, because if they're licensed, are they going to be taxed? What are the enforcement fines going to be against them? So, and that's why I'm saying, all those issues we've kind of skirted. If we're going to look at them, let's all get together and be honest and give everybody notice. What my bill does is just address the issue of the enforcement of the Child Youth Access Tobacco Act. And it just changes that definition to allow the police and the liquor enforcement officers to enforce e-cigarettes against kids with any of the paraphernalia, what is the word I'm talking about? Paraphernalia, thank you. Because right now, when the officers go up to them, they say, this doesn't have any nicotine in it. You can't, charge me. And they can't. They can't confiscate it. They can't. And the reason we can't test that is because it's expensive. Our state lab is doing a ton of other stuff, and I guess the test itself is really expensive. So this will just go back to anybody under 18 can't have the product. It's just keeping up with technology, and the other issues will come up later. The other issues are in that bill, or in the bill before you, the version of 242, which I voted for, which came out of the House Commerce Committee.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Representative. Appreciate your testimony. Next up is someone who's becoming a good friend of the committee, Representative Jim Hunt. Welcome, sir.
As long as he passes our bills.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much to allow me to speak again. And fortunately, this will be my last one for today.
We'll see you next week.
I'm sure we can do this all over again next week. So the record Representative John Hunt, Cheshire 11, Union Fitzwilliam. So this is another one of the bills that's kind of a couple of years in play. And what started out was that the Chief Wilson had come to me and said, we have a problem, and it is again related to the heroin crisis. And it was that when they made an arrest for someone selling a tobacco product, a nicotine product for someone under 18, they would send it over to the state labs, and the state labs had higher priorities. They wouldn't test it. So, notwithstanding the previous testimony that whether the Liquor Commission can enforce this task, the problem was they couldn't prosecute because they would never have the nicotine evidence to present to the judge. So, since we love little history lessons, let's take you back another 20 years ago. And I'll tell you how far back. This is Donna Sitek, the speaker. And Donna Sitek had wanted to figure out how we were going to properly enforce the 18-year-old smoking age. And she came to me, and in the Commerce Committee, we were just starting to get the liquor bills. They made a decision to get the liquor bills. And she says, yep, so this bill, we're going to send it, she's going to send it to me rather than the Criminal Justice Committee, because it really made sense that the best enforcement of the under 18 drinking age should be the people who are already enforcing the under 21 drinking age, smoking age, drinking age. And so therefore, it was best to empower the Liquor Commission's division to do the enforcement of two laws. They go hand in hand. And yes, it is true that most of the convenience stores sell both. And there aren't too many that sell one and not the other. They pretty much all sell separate. That's important. So back then we passed that bill, and when we did it, we were taking on enforcement. We knew there was, and I remember back then, and it wasn't something I wasn't going to lose too much sleep over, but that unfortunately we had this definition of e-cigarettes in the statute, and whether the Liquor Commission was enforcing somebody else's statutory authority. In other words, 126 is health. And when we asked the Liquor Commission to enforce something, we wanted to tell them what they're enforcing and giving that definition to them. So, yes, I did hijack her bill, even though I would say it was my bill previous year, but I ended up killing the bill because it was clearly that we were not getting where we want to get to in terms of the problems that we're trying to solve with that previous one. But when she brought this bill back in again, I sat down with Chief Wilson and I took another whack at it to see if we can get this right the second time. And that is, what we did is, first of all, we made sure that the e-cigarette definition is the same in both statutes. So that way we have to keep it clear. But most importantly is that we took out the reference to nicotine. Okay? Now this is where Senator Sanborn might be very interested to think about. And that is that clearly there was a discussion in the committee about, well, gee, if they're selling e-cigarettes, but they're not selling any tobacco nicotine in them, they shouldn't have to be regulated, right? Well, yeah, show me one. There was nobody in New Hampshire who was selling e-cigarettes that didn't have the shelf with the nicotine cartridges. So again, just like when we say when the liquid cane made sense for the convenience stores who were selling cigarettes and selling beer, both selling the same, both saying that when it comes to the e-cigarettes, and then if you look at the fiscal note, you can see the Liquor Commission said if there really is somebody out there, if there really was a bunch of places out there that were selling, it never got the license, never actually got the liquor license, which they required to the old law, and now this new law is going to pick them up because we added the word nicotine to them, that if there really was a problem, okay, then we'll visit that. But we couldn't think of any. I did a little survey myself. I walked down the mall in Manchester and a couple of e-cigarette places, and I said, "You sell any of these things without nicotine?" And they go, "Well, why would we want to do that?" So there aren't any. So yes, it is true that if there really was somebody out there who was selling e-cigarettes without any nicotine, then yes, we could say this is expansion of licensure, the evil licensure. But if there, but if the assumption that we have in the House Commerce Committee and the House, and I would say that we convinced the whole House of this way, that except there were probably some people who, libertarians probably didn't feel the same way, but they saw this as expansion of licensure. But that we couldn't find any, we don't know of anybody, and if there is a problem, we'll come revisit it. But at this point, as far as we can tell, is that none of these people who are selling these things have a problem with this bill because they're already licensed. And not that I need to tell you this, you all know this already. That's how we make government work, is we require you to have a license, and then at that point, we take the license away. Okay? That's expensive how government works. Okay? And the last thing I will say is, yes, it is true that this page the bill turned from 2 lines to 4 pages, because we had to, now that we had a definition of e-cigarettes in the statute, in the liquor statute, because before the liquor statute basically said any cigarette was also referring back to the statute. Now that we have those definitions too in there, now we had to go through every section of the law where the licensure was involved and had to drop in e-cigarette. If we hadn't created a new definition, then this bill would be 1 page. Okay, with that, I will end my testimony.
All right. Are there questions for Representative Hunt?
For the record, I am a licensee operating under the Liquor Department, so although I don't believe this
You're on premise.
I'm on premise, but out of fear of ethics that are exaggerated around the building, and may or may not have a comment to it, so participating. And my question for you is, Representative Hunt, do you think there's any other description that some might have of government that is different than, I think your statement was, we need to create licensing so we can take it away from it.
That's what it is. I mean, think of all the licensures that we have. Think of all the other. It's the whole point of it is we make you have it so we can take it away.
Follow up. So if we believe in the fair markets, we should eliminate all licensing to stop government's ability to threaten and take away people's ability to earn a decent living in this state.
Well, I guess then we would resort to the ways before we invented this licensure model. We would just put you in jail.
Thank you, Representative,
or in the stock
for expressing your values.
Are there any further questions for Representative Hunt? All right, since you two have had your fun, thank you, Representative.
Once again, it's a pleasure to be in front of you. Wonderful.
It is a pleasure to have you, but a pleasure to hear from you. All right, let me see here. Darryl Perry, Liberty Lobby LLC, opposes, wishes to speak. Mr. Perry.
Thank you. For the record, Darryl Perry, CEO of Liberty Lobby LLC. And I want to read the very brief minority report from the House, I believe it was the Commerce Committee, where it was written by Representative Mark Fromuth, who says this bill gives the Liquor Commission the ability to regulate vaping devices or e-cigarettes regardless of whether or not they contain nicotine. The current definition of e-cigarette exempts devices that do not contain nicotine, which is in line with current state policy. If we pass this bill, it would be on par with giving the Liquor Commission authority over non-alcoholic drink mixes. So, just because, well, you can mix it with some vodka, so therefore we have to regulate it, so now the Liquor Commission would get to determine who gets to sell orange juice, even though most grocery stores that sell orange juice also sell beer. So, well, they're already selling both things, so it's okay to just include everything under the license. Something else that needs to be considered is there's such a device called an actor's cigarette, that it does have a mouthpiece, a heating element, a battery, and an electronic circuit, but there's no nicotine inside the actor's cigarette. There is no way to put nicotine inside the actor's cigarette. What the actor's cigarette is, and I have a couple friends that are actors, unfortunately none of them currently possess their actor's cigarette, but it's a device that looks from a distance like a cigarette. When you hold it up to your lips and you puff on it, the end turns red so that when you're on a stage, it looks like you're smoking a cigarette. You get a little bit of vapor and you breathe out, something that appears to be smoke. So from a distance, yes, it does look like a cigarette, but it is not a device that you could even get nicotine out of if you wanted to. That would now be regulated as an e-cigarette, meaning that anyone under the age of 18 caught in possession of one of these devices could face penalties. Any company that wishes to sell one of these online and not have a tobacco license could possibly face penalties. I don't know exactly what the penalties are for shipping an e-cigarette to someone's house without a tobacco license if this passes, or if I were to somehow get a hold of some tobacco cigarettes that I purchased online from an unlicensed place. Somebody's getting penalized for something if we get caught. So I think you need to look at the unintended consequences of passing this, and I will answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Perry? All right, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Patricia Tilley from DHHS supports and wishes to speak.
Fine.
My error.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Patricia Tilley. I'm the Chief of Population Health and Community Services at the Division of Public Health Services. I hope not to take much of your time today. You've already heard lots of history lessons on where this bill came from. I will not repeat any of that. The division just simply wants to state that we support all efforts to reduce youth access to these products. That is our skin in the game, as it were, with this bill. So there has been a tremendous increase in the use of these products among youth, in particular in high school, and I've attached that within my testimony. So we just want you to be considerate as we go. We work closely with the Division of Liquor Enforcement and other stakeholders to try and come up with language that would give them the tools that they need to promote the lack of youth access to these products. So with that, that is the heart of our testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I know that there are other folks who left.
Questions for this gentleman? No? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mike Corallo from the American Cancer Society opposes, does not wish to speak. Nancy Vaughn from the American Heart Association opposes, does not wish to speak. Marie Mulroy opposes, does not wish to speak. Okay. Kim Coronas, Breathe New Hampshire, opposes, does not wish to speak. Ian Freeman, New Hampshire Liberty Party, opposes, does wish to speak. Mr. Freeman.
Good afternoon, Ian Freeman, one of the co-chairmen of the New Hampshire Liberty Party. I think we all know that nicotine addiction is a pretty profound addiction. We all probably have people close to us in our families and lives that have had experience with this, possibly. I know my grandfather died due to emphysema, so I mean, certainly it's struck home for a lot of us. But let's be realistic. The government hasn't stopped this problem from happening. No matter how much the crackdown, no matter how many regulations, teenagers, believe it or not, are still able to find out how to get cigarettes. And it seems to me that if teenagers are going to be using, or anybody is going to be using nicotine, I mean, I don't know how many studies have been done, but it seems pretty clear that vapor better than smoke. And so if we're going to choose one evil or the other over another evil, it seems that the vaping option is the safer solution. And a lot of people have used vaporizers to break the habit of cigarettes. They've used that as their tool to do that. So I think that any regulations that step in the way of people getting the product that they're looking to buy, or business owners looking to offer the product that they want to offer, is a problem. And the Liquor Commission is out there making life for business people more difficult. I don't really see why they exist, and I think that they need to be abolished entirely and let the market decide. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions for Mr. Freeman?
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, Bob Blaisdell, representing R.J. Reynolds, supports, wishes to speak. Mr. Blaisdell. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for your time this afternoon. For the record, Bob Blaisdell, representing R.J. Reynolds, as previously stated, and we are in support of the bill that's before you today. You should know that the as-introduced version of this bill is very similar to some language that this committee, this body, has already rejected this year and last year. And I'm referring to this year Senate Bill 209 and last year Senate Bill 422, which essentially put e-cigarette into the definition of what a tobacco product is. So that's the as-introduced version of this. And I worked with stakeholders and the members of the House Commerce Committee to get the language that you have before you. And I think what it does is it accomplishes two things in my mind. It accomplishes giving the ability of law enforcement, giving the tools that they're asking for. And I think you'll hear from some law enforcement individuals after me, maybe from the New Hampshire Liberty Commission. But it also separates e-cigarette out of tobacco. And that's really why, it was alluded to earlier, but I think Representative Hunt as to why it's a rather lengthy bill. It's because it was basically sections 3 through 12 are merely housekeeping by just inserting the term e-cigarette. So we think this is a good bill. to, again, give law enforcement their tools and to make things clear that e-cigarettes are not tobacco. And that's also spelled out currently under 126K2, where you'll see that they have a very specific definition for e-cigarette and a very specific definition for a tobacco product. So with that, I won't take that much more of your time. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions? All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate your testimony. Jay Moore is opposed and would like to speak.
That's probably Jay Noone.
It is Noone. Becky's wine carried down, made it complex. All right, Jay Noone.
For the record, well, thank you for having me. And for the record, I'm Jay Noone from Westmoreland, New Hampshire. I oppose this legislation for a few simple reasons. The first one being is not in scope with the purpose and intent of the framers of this government, which is to protect life, liberty, and property. And I don't see how this bill does such a thing. In fact, I feel the bill, opposes a health. E-cigarettes have helped many of my friends get off conventional, cigarettes, get off RJ Reynolds products, for example, and they've have been able to wean themselves off nicotine. And I think vaping is like Ian said, vaping is a very healthy option. I personally, from my research, my father actually died of throat cancer. He was a lifelong smoker. And my research is years trying to convince my dad to quit smoking and even move to vape cigarettes, which he wasn't really interested in at the time. It's not so much that the nicotine that really causes an issue with health with smokers. It's the fact that you're burning and there's carbon monoxide and there's all these other chemicals being put in there. So this bill would, in a sense, create more red tape and more hoops for establishments that are selling e-cigarettes currently to jump through. And I believe it would probably, like any other regulation on any product, would increase the price of it, make it less available, and another hurdle for a step of individuals to choose what they want to put in their own bodies to have a more healthy option than burning something and inhaling it. Further, I oppose this bill because it's just another small increment of increasing the power of government, which I would really like to see government just limited to protecting life, liberty, and property, not micromanaging all kinds of businesses and people's lives. And I mean, I'd like to see the Labor Commission, abolished also, for the record. So I don't feel this bill is good for liberty or freedom, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Will Anderson opposes, does not wish to speak. And Paul Beasley supports, does not wish to speak. Is there anyone in the room who maybe didn't sign up on the sheet who would like to speak to House Bill 242? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 242.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.